King had been arrested there a few weeks before. And they had the U.S. flag at half staff. And of course the Klan were just loaded with, I call them rebel flags, just the best word I have for them. And, I don't want to get on a sidetrack here, but the only one thing that came out of this massacre in South Carolina was, I think, hopefully pretty much the death of that flag. And to try to say that flag has any other meaning than what those Klansmen were flying it for is just not true. Well, anyway, so then the next week started, and we started testing it. So I have to. One of the first restaurants was the Santa Maria restaurant, and Hosea Williams, who was an SCLC leader, was in charge, as I understand it, of the program here. And we tested. We go back and forth several times, and people would go. He went with 2 or 3 black people to Santa Maria, and they would say, "Well, we're closed, and turn them away, or we don't allow agitators, this and that." And turn these people away. And one day, so that on the 10th of February or July, this had happened. And so I was sent. So that was the only time I recall where I actually got out of my role as a law clerk. I went with a girl named Betsy Klein. She was an 18-year-old teacher in we had a freedom school, like a summer school out at Florida Memorial. And she and I went to the restaurant. I'll never forget that. I just walked by there recently. It looks the same, that has the ramp, and we walked down the ramp, and they just turned away Hosea Williams. And I see a waitress peeking out the window, and she sees the 2 of us white people coming down, and she opens the door, and I can tell there's all kinds of tension in the restaurant. There were a few customers. So they seated us out on the left side there, out toward the back. We're kind of on the pier, and we're sitting there, and there was another white family sitting there, and they served us. I had a hamburger, cheeseburger, and a cup of coffee, and Betsy Klein had a salad and a cup of coffee. So we were served, and went back. We didn't have nothing happened to tense. But a week later, I was caught to the Santa Maria restaurant. So I testified that they were in fact opened, and so they, along with eventually with 16 other restaurants, got an injunction against them, ordering them to comply with the Civil Rights Act. Yeah, I'll just carry that thought a little bit farther. It was kind of complicated how the law worked. It was kind of like you got one bite at the apple. If you're a restaurant, you can stop once, in effect, because you're not in trouble until you actually turn somebody away. And then after that's happened, then you get sued and you get an injunction against you. And if you violate the injunction by turning somebody away again, that you're held in contempt of court. So we had to get this injunction, which we got against about, like I say, I think it was about 17 restaurants. And we had a whole other classification of defendant. We called them Class 2 defendants. And they were the actual harassers, the thugs. And I remember we knew names of a lot of them, but not all of them. And we had 10 names, and the first 6 were Manuskis. Never forget that, And then we got the injunction against the Ancient City Gun Club, which is another name for the Klan, really. I remember one day we were working on the civil rights case. Driving into town, Dr. Halen, he had an old Volkswagen. Oh, I never could quite understand that, but it was real old, but he allowed us to use it for that purpose. And we're driving down US 1, just and Buick pulls up on the left. I'm on the right, coming down US 1. And this Buick is on the left. It's got a couple of these Klan types in it, and they started yelling and cursing us and trying to get us to pull over. And the problem I was having was I had to make a left turn. These guys were on and I got to the very end. So we were all stopped at the red light, and they're carrying on against us. And they were kind of asleep at the switch. And as soon as the light turned green, I turned left right in front of them. And just hit right back here to 79 Bridge Street. So that was something I recall. And I guess I'll get to my claim to fame. Biggest, to me, most important thing I did, and the thing I remember the best. And that was on August the 5th. On August the 5th, in federal court, Judge Brian Simpson order authorizing the injunctions against all these restaurants and motels and so on. And Martin Luther King and Hosea Williams and a guy named Henry Schwarzschild, who was in charge of the lawyers group that was coming into town, were here for a conference. A press conference. And they did their conference, and I was busy shoveling back and forth to Emerson Airport in Jacksonville. I made 3 trips that day. And the third trip was I left at 10:30, and Dr. King needed a ride to the airport, and so I had the honor of driving him. And I'll never forget that because he was by himself in the back. He'd come in, I think, just for the press conference. There was one other guy, a black guy, who just wanted to ride to Jacksonville. So he rode up in front with me. And like I said, it was about 10:30 at night. And so I started driving out very carefully, and incidentally, I'd got myself a Florida driver's license. One of the things we were always worried about is being harassed by the police. They were looking for any excuse. And so I'm driving pretty slow because I don't want to go speed in St. Augustine because the police weren't our friend in those days. I don't know if they are, but they weren't then. And Dr. King spoke to me. He said, he was very kind. He says, well, it's always a good thing to observe the traffic laws and not speed and all that. But, I got a flight to catch and I'm running late. And so I told him I was being careful. I said, as soon as I get out on Highway US 1, I'll make up time. And I'll tell you, I was in a sweat. So I speeded all the way to Jacksonville Airport, and I pulled up right in front of the terminal building, and in those days it was not what we have now, which is kind of impressive what we got now. It was a small terminal, and I pulled up right in front. It was late at night, and there wasn't much going on. So Dr. King gets out, and I want to make sure he's going to make his flight. So I get out, and I kind of go in with him, and we had a few minutes to spare. And I noticed, it was kind of funny, I was taken aback because he stopped at a newsstand, takes the time, he buys a Newsweek magazine and Time magazine. Goes on and catches his flight, and I take my passenger to Jacksonville and come back. So anyway, I'll never forget that. But I do have some few other memories of Dr. King, actually. I remember I was telling Guinevere one time he went to court. We were in court quite a bit. One time, just as an observer, he was in the courtroom, and I think it was, Coretta was out in where I was, outside the courtroom. It was kind of a wide hall, if that's the right word. And some of his kids were there. They were running around just like kids that age would do. They were young. And Dr. King came out soon and they left, but I remember that. And there's one other strange to me was he said things I wouldn't understand or see here, but one of the biggest villain around here was L.O. Davis. I don't know if that rings a bell with anybody. L.O. Davis was the sheriff of St. Johns County, and he ran the stockade. They had a jail outside of town here, and they had a kind of a stockade where they were holding a lot of the demonstrators, and they would set the bail high, make it hard for them to get, make bail. And I'm watching one of these services, mass meetings in I think this is Baptist church right here. I'm in there, and Dr. King is preaching, and I'm standing toward the back, which is the front door of the church, and I look over, standing right inside the church is L.O. Davis. I just, by himself, he had the gall to come in by himself, and he's just standing there watching. And I just thought, I don't know how to interpret that even to this day. He didn't stay very long, he left, but, I won't forget that. Another thing, just as a kind of in passing, I'll be done here, is, this was 9 months after President Kennedy had been assassinated, and I was in a lot of people's homes around here, and in many of them you'd see a portrait of President Kennedy on their wall. Well, before I leave, though, I got to tell you about Dr. Haling here. One night I was working right here in the reception area. I come in, and there's these two. They look like they're from the Hosmanousi's Ancient City Gun Club. A couple of white hillbilly-looking guys sitting in there, and I thought, what the heck? Then I realized they were patients. You were treating these guys, and I'm not saying that that these particular ones were activists, but there they were. I was just kind of taken aback. I couldn't say, what the heck? And then, it was usually a lot of chaos around here, but there'd be a few quiet times, and Dr. Haling you would be in your lab. He'd be in his lab, working on dentures and things, and I thought, how can he be multitasking like that? Next to Dr. King, Dr. Haling's my hero in civil rights, So I'll be turning this over to you, Dr. Haling.